Well, good afternoon and welcome to Rtist Revue. We hope you're having a good, summer's here now. It's the end of May 2013. We just finished Memorial Day, and finally summer is arrived unofficially here in New Orleans. We've had one of the longest springs I know in my lifetime, which has been really kind of neat, but also a little strange. But the heat is rising every day now, and soon we'll be in those insufferable days of summer. Anyway, we're happy to bring you a new artist, as we do at the end of each month. And we want to go ahead and introduce you to her. I'll tell you how I got involved with her. If you watch our corresponding sister show, Restaurant Revue, a few weeks ago we had a great new Vietnamese restaurant in Old Metairie, off Old Metairie Road, called Rolls and Bowls. Vivian, the partner, wife, owner of that, is good friends of our artist, and she actually is doing a wonderful service by displaying her work in the restaurant. And I fell in love with it the first thing because, first of all, a lot of it is abstract work, which is my favorite. Also, extremely vivid colors. So, one, it does a dramatic job to that restaurant because that's kind of slick, kind of contemporary, very minimal, and to have these great pieces on the wall is a real add-on to the restaurant. So, without further ado, let me go ahead and introduce the artist today. Her name is Parah. Kitty, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob.
Good. We appreciate you coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you consider yourself a native, but tell us about how long have you been here and anything else about your personal that we'd love to hear.
Well, I was born and brought up in Calcutta, in the city of in India, and we moved to the United States in 1988. And I came here with my family. My husband was transferred. He worked for Dow. And I've been living here since. I've moved to New Orleans about 13 years ago, and I've been painting for a very, very long time. And
how did you first get interested in painting?
Well, I've always been interested in painting, even as a child. In fact, I have an artistic background. My grandfather was a sculptor, and he used to paint stage screen settings and actually sculpted a lot of the images in cemeteries. My mother, bless her, always discouraged me from art. Oh. But I did my master's here in Charleston, West Virginia, under Stan Sporny, and since then I've not looked back. I've always done a lot of figurative work, but my latest love is abstract. That's where my mind always moves towards. And so you'll see a lot of figurative work, but you'll also see a lot of abstract work of mine today.
Well, that's great. In fact, I don't know how, even though artists seem to be very good at being able to go into different directions, but at the same time, I don't know how you can shift from one to another and do justice to both. I mean, I guess it's just because I don't have any talent. But I just think it's really, really great. Now, one other thing, let's see, I know you said you are showing in that restaurant. Don't have another gallery showing right now, but she does have a website which you're seeing under, which is basically very easy. It's hername.com. That's KITTYPARAKH. Tell us a little something about the website. Does it contain paintings, etc., for the folks to see?
Yes, it's a very explicit website, quite a nice one actually, and it was designed by my daughter-in-law. And it has 2 sections to it, the abstract and also the figurative. And I've sold quite a lot of stuff to the website, and it's updated. I regularly update it. Some of the newer paintings that are here today are not there, but it will be soon. And,
but in comments, there's others that we don't have today that you can see. So it'll give you a broader scope. Whether if you see this program as well as check that, I'll always check that anyway for further details. That way you can contact her and learn more, whatever you'd like to know about her wedding. I mean, it's about her paintings and about her offerings.
Right.
All right. Anything else? Because if not, we're going to go ahead and move to our first painting.
Yeah, well, I just also wanted to let you all know that I have a studio at home, and I sell paintings from my house also, and anyone is welcome to come. I'd be more than happy to show them around.
Well, they will probably get your phone number off of the website, and at that point, they will. We don't want to give your address out here,
Sure.
but that way you can speak to them, and if you can arrange an appointment to show a piece or pieces, then you'll do that. So don't forget to check her website out. Okay, let's go ahead. We've teased you enough. We want to go ahead now and start taking a look at and I believe the first 10 that we're looking at are abstracts, so they're right up my alley. And let's see if we can get the camera situated. And I noticed that predominantly, let's talk about most of the work that you do is in acrylic, is that right?
I do, yes. Most of the work is in acrylic. It's much easier to use that medium. You can layer it well, but I also do it in oils. Oils are a little more expensive than the paintings become a little expensive, but acrylic is a quick, modern medium to use, and yes, that's what I use mostly.
Yeah, when I see about acrylics, there's two things. I know that from a technical standpoint that they do like dry quicker. In fact, some oil paintings seems like they never dry. Depending on how much layers they put on it. But also, they always seem to have, acrylics and pastels always seem to have the brightness that I just don't see, even though I love oils, I just don't see ever achieved. They're magnificent oils and their subjects, but I never really can discern that brightness to me. That's the best term I'm using. It just comes off the canvas in whether it's a pastel or an acrylic situation. All right, well, I think we're ready to show our first piece. And I know you're kind enough, and I know you told me you title all your work, which is great because many of the artists here don't have a title on one piece, let alone another. Let's see if we can go ahead and take a look at our first piece. We can bring it up. Great. Now this is it's a beautiful piece. This is relatively large, and why don't you go ahead and start telling us a little bit about it?
Okay, so this is one of my latest pieces. It's a 36 by 36. I love to work on a square canvas.
Oh, really?
I love the space around it. I always feel that the shape is very contemporary. But anyways, I've used acrylic paint on this, and there are almost definitely minimum 10 layers of paint on it.
Wow.
And I begin with the primary colors, basically, the blues and the yellows and the reds. And I scratch a lot into it, and I came. It's like an addressing the landscape. I always go back to the landscape. I always feel that beauty lies in nature, and that's where I begin. And I just start putting my thoughts onto it. It takes me a long time to work on the space, and that's what I kept in mind, the space. I wanted to think about shape and texture. And and it looks like a rose garden to me, so that's why I called it Rose Gold Path.
Rose Gold Path.
And always the lines go upward, sideways. I put a lot of gold in it to give the feeling of purity, something that's positive. The colors are green, and there's a lot of speckled gold mica I have put onto it. So there are several layers that go into the painting, but always keeping in mind the idea of space. I love space within the canvas.
Oh yeah, I think you know, especially the central space is so clearly defined, which is 3/4 of the piece almost.
Right.
So that's what's really nice, and it gives that glow or afterglow of maybe the sun or just a light source, just something intriguing to give it more depth, whereas the colors are actually on the forefront of it. So it's very, very interesting. Now, is this framed or not framed?
This is not framed. I like to leave most of my modern pieces unframed because if someone has to buy it, they can do what they want with it. Sure. But if I do put a frame on it, it would just be a plain, simple wooden frame.
But now, these are not gallery wrapped, though, is that right?
Yes, you could call them gallery wrapped.
What gallery wrapped, what we mean for it is that the painting actually continues to all four canvas sides.
Right.
So that's an extension of the painting. Here, the colors don't look. It looks like maybe you painted it, but maybe you've almost painted a frame. Is that what you've done?
Yes. I've just kept
it. It's like a blue or a black or a charcoal gray. Is that what you?
Yeah, it's just basically the white. I haven't framed this one at all. There are some that are framed, but not this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, once again, and why did you? How do you? I know you gave a little minimal part about your philosophy about being like square 36 by 36. What intrigues you about that particular size, or the idea of it being perfectly square?
I guess it's a sense of balance. I just love to see all my work in squares. I love everything that's contemporary and modern. It's not that I don't like traditional stuff, but I do. But somehow it's the square. It's a challenge for me, and I love to work with a square.
Well, what we love is the monumental pieces like this, and I think you've got at least 2, if not 3, in the show, that today I think is the key to art collecting. A lot of our folks don't have the wherewithal to collect more than a couple of pieces, and obviously they need significant coverage since they don't have additional pieces for the wall. So a large piece like this basically becomes your wallpaper. It becomes your whole significance to the wall. And so by centering this or putting it on a wall piece, and again, this is lovely for whether it be at home or really in an office. I think it's a beautiful piece that can be used in either a commercial setting or a residential setting. Really very, very nice. Okay, let's move on to our second piece, which is a little smaller and a lot different in the color. Let's see if we can bring that one up and we can start describing it. This has some just magnificent greens and I think blues, and wow, as you can see on the monitor, it really is very, very vibrant. The other one was a little muted and very light. This has got a lot more of the vibrancy that I was talking about early on in the show. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, you have a title on this one?
Yes, it's called The Strength of Green.
That's pretty obvious on this one, huh?
Yeah, working with green is quite a difficult choice, and so you have to know what greens go with, and to make greens,
of course,
you have to mix the blues and the yellows.
Right.
And actually, this piece came along pretty well. I began with really dark colors, with ultraviolet blues and purples, and it was really dark. And then I went back into it again with the dark green. And when I put the dark green down, which is at the lower bottom of the canvas, I had to put that red over there. And it sort of started singing to it by itself, and then I started putting the light green, and that's the whole thing just came into place. And I love to scratch into my work. All my lines go upwards one way or the other, and I always believe that it has a lot of energy, it's positive. That's what my canvases are, it's always very positive, and I just feel that I'm happy doing it, and it's there, and it just reminds you of the bayous and nature, and that's what it is. And I just put color upon color till it becomes the right composition. That's what is important. I somehow know when to stop, and the gold comes in last, but you'll find the tweaks of the orange and the pinks and the reds. That's my signature. When I put that in the end, I know that's the end of my work.
When you say you scratch, why don't we, I have an idea, but why don't we go ahead and maybe describe that process a little bit more for the person?
Sure. Once you have layers of paint one on top of each other, when it's wet, I take either my brush or I take something that's got a sharp edge needle to it.
Like a razor or something? Or not
no, not an eraser. No, something that's sharp. Even it could be a twig, and I just scratch into it.
I got it.
And I also take the end of my palette knife and just scratch into it.
Yeah.
And
now
then
the top. What are the top colors again above the medium blue, the green?
That's a pink there, and there's red, and there's phthalo blue, and green chrome oxide. Lots of colors there.
On the very top. That's what you're saying. The top section is a lot of colors. It comes almost to me. Again, I've got bad eyes. Audience knows. Looks a lot like emerald green, but I know it's not a green just only color, because I know emerald green right now has been dubbed the color for the year. There's a company that's well recognized, the design, Pentamone, something like that, and they dictate what is the color for everything, for fashion, for the season, for the house decorating, for art. And it just, for some reason, that looked like that color was partly there, and it would just be great to symbolize the current green. But the other vibrancy of the bottoms are the ones I really like the most, the greens and the blues at the lower half. just really speak to me, and I think it's just really fantastic. And I like the idea of just streaking upward because I think it says something to it, because a lot of the artists go in multiple directions, and you probably do in some of your work too, and it goes to a totally different look. And I think this is very neat, clean, and really very sweet.
Thank
and
you.
we said the size on this one is about what, Kitty?
It's a 24 by
24.
Yeah.
So it's a square 2 by 2.
No, this is not square. This is
not
a
square.
rectangle.
Okay.
It's a rectangle. It's 20 by 24.
And do we have anything on the sides there? Is there any frame?
No, no frame on this one either.
Okay.
No.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to number 3. And number 3 is going to really stand out again. It's taking that gold or that yellow of the very first piece, which was very muted but so prominent, and now giving it a real place of significance in this painting. Let's take a look at this. It's really fantastic. And again, blending it in with the other colors. So why don't you tell us about this? We got a name on this one?
Yep, it's called Afternoon Calm.
Afternoon Calm.
Yes.
Very nice.
And I love to name all my art pieces because I just feel it's relevant. And again, when I started with this canvas, I was addressing nature. I always address nature, like I mentioned before. And this is a square, 24 by 24.
Okay.
And I had decided that I was going to use the greens and the calm whites, and that's how it began. But of course, like I said, I always begin with primary colors. I put it all down and I wait for a day. Then I go back and look at it. I stand back and see where I want to begin. And so you can see it has a shoreline kind of.
Right, very much like a shoreline,
yes,
exactly.
And you can see all the scratching that I do into it. That's
as we're getting closer.
insistent.
On this one specifically, it's very visible,
Very
which I'm glad to
visible.
see because we just talked about it,
Yes.
so the audience can view exactly what the scratch, especially right where we're looking right now. That
Right.
it's so visible and just really cool. Now, of course, as you get further away from the painting, that gets less pronounced, so it doesn't
Right.
look like a. But it really is an attractive situation. And then, of course, there's some build-up, like on the linear, on the edges of each
Yes.
color transfer, which I like it on. It also gives a lot of depth to the painting.
Right, and I worked at the edges, so the center is the space, and and to leave that much of space, negative space like that, is very important. So you think about it, how you kind of balance the sides and you balance the center,
Right. Yeah.
and keep it in focus. So I mean. And when I put the greens, I just knew that this is what is going to be. It's going to be a calm painting, and so the colors also became very calm.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're great, and you're very right, because majority of paintings or photographs are always just centrically driven, whereby the center is the subject matter, is the real core of the piece.
Right.
And here you've left this big empty space and worked magnificently around it, so it still becomes a prominent part of the thing, but it also requires the edging to give it any significance. And that touch of the oranges and the rust, etc., on the left and the others on the right, I think just those really add a dimension. Also makes it much more versatile for someone who's using it on display or something like that, because they can have so many more color choices to bring in their accessorizing. So it's really a lovely piece. And you said this one was 2 by 2 and not framed. Is that right?
Not framed. This one's
and
not
that's called
framed.
Afternoon Calm.
Afternoon Calm.
Very nice. All right, let's move on to our next, and these are out of our visual plane, so we'll have to wait till our cameraman gets into it so we can see exactly what our number 4 will be. There we go. Now this to me was, and you can shoot down anything I say, but this to me was the closest of what I saw that actually represented more of an impressionistic, more of a traditional type painting. It was just magnificent. I know that's not where you were going, but it really has that aura. So to me, this would satisfy both tendency, people who are more looking for subject matter as opposed to people who are really interested in just abstract. So however you did it, to me, it really came off with this dual fold. But go ahead, tell us what you call this and about this one, please.
I've called this piece the Twilight Calm.
Okay.
And like I said, I began again with dark colors, and then I did the other piece first. So this was the second piece.
Yeah, this looks like not a continuation, but certainly in the same vein.
Yes, it is, definitely. And I decided to just go in a quiet, with the quiet tones, quiet colors, and then I began to build up on the top half with the yellows and the ochre and the gold. And then the sky just had to be a pink sky, and I wanted the painting very much to be a quiet one.
Right.
Sometimes it's a reflection of your own emotions, and I wanted it to be an emotive piece, and I think I achieved it here. And it's quiet, and I couldn't have named it better, I think. I love the gold touch that is there, the mica that is put on the openness of the canvas, and of course you can see all my lines are there. That's typical me. I just cannot help but scratch into layers and layers of paint. There's a lot of paint underneath that to get that feeling of line. And there's always moving in, like I said, it's always positive.
Yeah. But what I see, again, going back to what I said about being more of a traditional look,
yes,
that this one paired with the prior one really looks like a different part of the day in a nearby, like if you would continue
yes,
your gaze down the coastline or down the seascape. You would see it. This might be some clouds setting in or a little haze in the sun. So you get a total that change of the sky coloring is a tremendous effect. So that way you really see almost similar areas in just different lightings. Yeah. So really, really and like I say, this one even more so than the prior one really speaks to me as, like I say, it's more of a traditional type painting.
Exactly.
So hopefully folks will see that as well who are geared toward that, can relish that as well. Okay, again, folks, we're speaking to Kitty Parah. She's our Artist of the Month. Don't forget, our director will always put up during the show the phone numbers. We have 2 phone numbers here. If you'd like to call and speak to Kitty or myself about anything going on this show or any of our other shows, don't hesitate, because she'd be happy to elaborate. Sometimes we not thinking and talking to a term that maybe you're not familiar with or need further elaboration on any of the pieces you've seen. So don't hesitate to call up either one of those numbers, and the director will put you through so that way you can speak to one of us. Okay, let's move on to, I think it's like number 5. We're about halfway finished the abstracts in the front. Let's see what we've got coming up now. All right. Again, this is bringing back maybe some of that. I think it was our second version with those blues, and those vivid blues and greens, but more on a horizontal, a vertical look. This is really neat. What do we have going on here, Kitty?
This one I've called The Spirit of the Bayou. And to be honest with you, I had just come back from France when I did this painting, and the skies there were very dreary and very blue and dark and gray.
So you wanted to counteract that feeling.
Yes, I definitely did. And I finished this painting in almost 3 days.
Wow.
And yes, and it was... So you can see all the quick brush strokes that are there. I just had to put it down. It was such a joy to see the landscape again, and that's why it just came out. And I'm very happy with this painting. It's just like very quickly, almost like an impasto, and just did it. And I love that little orange and the green, and just the bayou. It's just the bayou, and that's why I called it The Spirit of the Bayou.
Yeah. I think it's very dynamic, and I like, because several of the others that we've seen have been more horizontally related, even though they were square paintings. This is not only vertical in its subject or its look, but also in the actual framing. What size are we talking about here?
It's about 20 by 24.
Okay. Right. And then this one is framed, I believe.
And this is framed, and this is in oil. It's an oil painting.
Ah.
Yes.
Now, you see, darn if I'm not wrong, because this... It proved me very wrong here what I said in the opening statements, because that's what I say. I find very few oils that have the vivid brightness of acrylics. And from this view, and I don't know, putting them side by side, getting closer, from this view, you've done equally justice to the earlier one, which was an acrylic, right? The one
yes.
that was, yes. So that's amazing. So And to be able to do something like that, whip something like that out in 3 days is remarkable. But I really like it. One, because it's different than the others and going to the vertical direction instead of the horizontal.
Right.
But once again, focusing on those really just vibrant colors. Taking primary colors, but putting them at a level that don't seem to be primary at all. They must be on the pastel and the vibrant side. Anything else you want? And that's called Spirit of the Bayou.
Spirit of the Bayou.
Cute name.
Right.
Cute
Spirit
name.
of the Bayou.
Okay. Well, we're about a little bit more than halfway, I think, if I can get the correct number of paintings on the primary side of the situation. So let's see if we can check into another and keep them while we're going on a roll. Let's see what we have. Here we go. What we have here now?
So this is part 2 of Spirit of the Bayou.
Oh, okay, part 2.
Right.
And now, was this a 3-day endeavor too?
Yes, it definitely
wow.
was. So
you started like one and finished the other one and then jump into the other? Or you weren't doing it simultaneously?
That's how I normally work. I like to do things in series, and so this was just a pair. And
so you complete one first, so you don't work on them simultaneously.
I do.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Oh, wow.
I work on my pieces simultaneously. I do.
And so this is Spirit of the Bayou too.
This is Spirit of the Bayou too.
So much difference in this one than the other one, other than the vibrancy of the major colors. Right. I think the addition of, I'm calling it black. I don't know if it is that black striping or quarter section is just so dynamic on this painting. I mean,
it's blue. It's not black. And it's green.
Pardon my incorrect eyes. Go ahead.
So basically, you look at the shapes that is there. It's just the flat shape, and then I just bring it all together with all the beautiful, bright, vibrant, small colors. You can see the brush strokes again. You can see the cutting into the canvas. So that's me. That's me. And,
well, I think you've done a wonderful job. Now, I hate to say it here, but again, folks, as I say, my eyes are bad, so I see a lot of things in the paintings and pictures that really aren't there. But the center portion where you have the numerous colors actually looks like a mapping, like an aerial mapping of different countries, almost around the Mediterranean or something, or Egypt or the Golan Heights, stuff like that. So it really is fascinating because it really looks like a painting of an aerial mapping system, And again, pardon me for saying that, but that's the first thing I saw I was drawn to the colors central, and it really looked like individual countries that you had identified on the overall map. So please, like I say, don't take offense at that.
But no, not at all, not at all.
Right, but colors here. What I like is things that we haven't. I know you've talked about them before, but I have not seen, like those pinks and those Rosetta colors there on the left center. I hadn't seen that in any of the other pieces, even though you did mention pinks. Either they were over covered with other colors, so they would just peep out. But here they have a significance on their own, and that's what I like, the definition of it, that the color itself is truly defined as opposed to just being a sneak peek or a portion of many other colors. But really very, very ingenious. Now, this size on this how is it comparable to the first?
Yes, it is. It's the same size.
Same size. And again, framed again, right?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, folks, we're talking to Kitty Parah of New Orleans. She's been here now many, many years. She's brought a lot of her work. As you can see, that most of it is in acrylic. Some of it, a few we've seen today have been in oils. But what's really the most notable is the phenomenal vibrancy of her work. I tell you, no matter what shade wall one of these put on, it's going to jump out at you. It's going to really play a significant portion of decorating that wall. You don't need curtains, you don't need anything in that room, whether it's furniture or not, to just make a statement with these particular paintings. And that's what I really enjoy about them, is that abstract's always been my favorite. And even though a lot of those sometimes border on the darkness, here we don't see it. It's just we've seen dark colors once or two, but they're in the minority role here. The predominant role is just wonderful, whether it's an afterglow in her calm scenes or these others that get a lot more vibrant, are still all reflecting nature. and also very definitively hers with her continual scratching techniques. Not that others don't do that, but usually it's mixed with a lot of other stuff. It's not just the basic strata of the painting. Here it seems to be a certain importance that really adds to the painting itself. Okay, we're going to see a few more in the front room, as we call it, and then we're going to head on back and see something's a little different than the abstract. But I think we've got a couple more, and let's see if we're ready to go ahead and take a look at the next one. How many more paintings up there? Why don't we go ahead and start talking, Kitty?
So this one is actually a painting that I struggled with, to be honest.
Struggled?
I struggled with it.
Wow.
Yes, and I guess I was at an aspect of my life when I was trying to, at crossroads, and I've called this painting the golden paths of life. And but it's a positive painting because the lines are all moving upwards again. And this is a canvas of hope. It's a canvas of prosperity, of peace. And when I worked through with it, it gave me, I struggled with it, but yet it gave me a lot of joy. And every time I look at it, I always see something new. And that's what I love most about it, is that it's not bored me. I've done it, it's been about 3-4 years now since I've done this piece. But I really think that it will find a good home for itself because it's just a positive canvas. It has a lot of good energy in it. And there are layers and layers of paint. The bottom layers are all dark, and then I started putting the whites and the golds and the yellows. Those are all my positive colors. And the blue had to be there because of the water. So basically, it's just a landscape, and yet it is a landscape of the mind. And going up with hope and happiness, searching hope and happiness.
Now, once again, is this, I have to ask, is this oil or
This is acrylic paint.
Acrylic,
This is acrylic paint, and that's why I called it...
what did you call it? I don't think you named it.
Yes, it's called the Golden Life Baths. And
Golden Life.
This is a part of my retrospective series. It was pretty retrospective.
Well, I see it's so different than even though the color schemes are somewhat akin to something a couple of ones we've seen, no doubt. But I see it as I don't want to say
a lonely figure.
I see figures, more than one, almost 4. And not ghoulish or ghost-like, but almost ghost-like, but also like to kind of make it very more ethereal. They're kind of draining. It's not like rain, but almost that kind of technique, like it would be dripping, so that to emphasize that this is more of a spirit figure than a defined human figure.
Yes.
So and I love it, like I say, because that's why I think it's so unique compared to the other works, where the others never really have any humanality or personality to it. It's all landscape, and I still see your landscape in there. But I see these 3 or 4 figures that are just there, and where you take it before the center and made it into that primary color of the whites or whatever. Now you've divided them into these individual elements, you see?
Right.
Even though they're still somewhat in the center, so they still demand their presence even more, because they're so elongated that the white is probably even more significant than when it was combined together. I'm just really amazed at this painting. I mean, just like I said, I would, other than the colors and the technique, I would, after what we've seen, I would not, if this were put on a wall somewhere, I would not automatically say this was you. So although all the others I think I see, and I see bits and pieces of you, but I see a whole, and maybe that's why you say you struggled, because there's you and there's something else in you that we haven't seen in any of the other works that we've seen today. So this is very, very nice. And it's, again, is a 2 by
No, this is a big painting. So 36 by
even
42.
Better. Say it again.
36 by 42.
So 3 by almost 4. That's phenomenal. And of course, it's canvas and it's acrylic.
It's acrylic and it's framed. Yes.
Well, this is dynamite. I mean, I know I like that first one we did, the large side, because I tell you about how much but I think I like so far this almost the best of your works. I love the blues and greens of those other two that were so dynamic, which are still here. But this has, again, to me, much more subject matter defined than in the others. The others was, like I say, more traditional landscaping. This just had some of that human dimension to it that I think excellent. Well, all right. Well, we've got I think we said they got 2 or 3 left over there. Let's go ahead and see if we can finish those off. Don't hesitate, folks, if you want to call. The number's been on the screen. We'll be happy to talk to you about anything you're seeing here. Hopefully you're enjoying as much as I am Kitty Parah's work. And again, you can see it if you happen to go out to Old Metairie and go right on Metairie Road and want to try some great Vietnamese food, rolls and bowls, or even if you don't, if you want to just go in, and they'll be more than happy. The lovely couple, Ricky and Vivian, who are her friends, will show you around. See, they have her cards there, so you can contact her if you like on any of the things you see. Or don't forget to go to her website, www.kittyparah.com, and you can see some of these and others, so it can increase your appreciation of her work. Okay, let's take a look at one near the end of our abstract work. Let's see what we got. Wow. One, when I thought we couldn't do anything more with a vivid color, we introduced a new one, red. How much more primal and vibrant can you get? Tell us about this one, please, Kitty. What are we calling this?
This is called Emerging Green.
Emerging
Green. And okay. I'm very much attached to this piece. It's an oil painting.
Oh, it's oil.
It's an oil painting, and it was done a couple of years after Katrina. And when I started it, I struggled with this one too. But when I started putting the paints, I just put it with a spatula, and I would just just put it on the canvas, scrape it off, went back again to it many times. And then I started putting in the yellows, and then I started putting the greens and the reds. And you can see those marks when I actually took the tube of paint and rubbed it through the canvas. And they were always, like I said, positive lines. And for a moment I thought, were they tears? I couldn't quite place it. And but I think I could see the green come out from behind. And so I always felt that this was like a rejuvenation. So for me, this painting is very, very important. And I hang it with a lot of pride in my house, right in my living room. And every time I pass by it, I always see something new. And it is what I really call it, this emerging of green. And it's really a rejuvenated painting.
Well, I certainly do. And I think, once again, we've got a humanesque type form. So what I'm seeing is like this is the ghost of Katrina leaving and recovery coming back.
Yes.
So because it is dominated by the rebirth of the greens and the yellows and the things that nature brings back to any type of entity once it's been destroyed or ruined. And so that's why I think the shapes aren't as defined as before. They're more blended together, and as if they're dissipating. Right. As if they are leaving, like they should do, leaving the painting and leaving the damage that they've done, so Mother Nature can revisit itself and rebuild itself. So I could certainly understand why this is a speciality of you, because I think it blends a lot of some of the first ones with that significant one we just looked at before. So I also enjoyed. Now, about the size on this?
This one is 30 by 30.
And this is oil or acrylic?
This is oil painting.
Oil
it's
again.
An oil painting, yes.
Once again, very, very nice. So that's called The Spirit of, what was it again?
No, this is called Emerging Green.
Emerging Green. I'm the one who put spirit in. Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, I think we have one or two more. Let's kind of wrap this up so we can go ahead and look at something a little different. Is that correct? Let's see if we've got a couple more. All right, we get him in place. Let's give us the time. And Kitty will pick up the narrative. All right. Wow. Now here's another departure. Right there, just that one little segment. I don't know how much of it. That's a tremendous departure from what we've seen. Let's go ahead. Why don't you tell us about this?
So this is a 20 by 20, and this is, again, like I said, a part of my philosophical canvases, and it's an acrylic, and it was just the lines depict, like I said, life and where it's taking us, and it's a pathway going up. It's always going up. Yeah. I love to. I cannot reiterate it enough that I always feel that there's good energy going into my canvas, and there's value in that. Sometimes I paint because I really need to paint. I want to paint, and that's what's happened over here. I just could not. The lines were just going up in one direction, coming down and up, and so it's part of what living is. And so you'll see a lot of golden lines going sideways, going upways, and that's what life is about. And so that's why I call these my introspective pieces. It has a sister canvas too,
which we'll see in a moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Really lovely. I know there's a smaller size, but what
it's
size?
20 by 20.
20 by 20.
And
so back to your square.
Framed, yes.
And does it have a frame, or is that just
it has framed? It's a frame, and and this painting has several layers in it. There's a lot of texture. You can see the lines are like I've scraped into it.
Right. Oh,
and they're
definitely.
Very distinct.
Right. If we'll focus, I'm glad the camera's going right in where we want to, because again, the definitive lines are so good there. The spacing, the different spacing of the widths, right. But then to have that a little accumulation of color, of which we saw in the beginning, which to me really shook me to the bone, because it was certainly not. It's part of the striations that we're talking about, but just an accumulation of color. It almost looked metallic.
Yes, there's a lot of metallic color in that.
Yeah, which I haven't seen in anything else we've seen today. So that's why I said, my goodness, what are we doing here? But really like it. And then paralleling the pastel pinks, that magnificent pink shades with that Wedgwood kind of blue, and then even to the lighter blue being on the perimeter, giving it that more ethereal look as you go up to the top. Yes. Just phenomenal. Right there, that metallic look again there, in the blues and the greens, right, and the streaks right in the pinks. Just really fantastic. So once again, this, and it's such a simplistic piece, so it certainly should appeal to most folk, because it's not something that would be offensive to the eye, or trying to define a particular geometric object or something that would be, and many of those would not be a problem. And there is another artist seeing something and throwing on something over and above this would also enhance it in a different direction. But the simplicity of this would certainly bear out, what your intention was and what you were feeling at that time. All right, well, let's go ahead and take a look at the sister piece, because that must be the last one that we have over there before we get to the figuratives. And again, I'm sure I remember they're almost similar spaces, similar sizes. Let's see if we can bring this one in the frame. Okay, wow.
So this one is called Life Junctions, and that's where very often we are in certain junctions of our life, and we are at crossroads. And so I started thinking of life in general, and I said, well, if we can go upwards, we can also go sideways, and sometimes we can stop. And that's when I started putting the lines in, and the circles over there depict living, life. And I just worked along with this on this, along with the other piece, so that it went on side by side, and that's what it is. It's also a very...
Well, I see this one again, even though you do see it as a companion piece, as more of a commercial piece. No disrespect there. But like the things on the side that looks like paintings with a little basket of flowers. The middle section looks almost like some architectural, some homes, the French or Spanish influence, with some galleries and windows. And then the defined lines, which, to me, those little parallel stripings and all, which add, almost appear to be like upholstery technique. Right. So it's like and that's why I'm saying the whole thing looks like to me a commercial piece. Not that it should be in a business or anything like that, but it doesn't look like it's looking much more like you're portraying an architectural piece rather than the landscape or the a non-scape that we've talked about before. Here, this looks like definitive things that people can see and relate to. And I don't know if you, like I say, you may disagree with
There's definitely a lot of texture in it. I have stamped into it and rubbed into it. So, but it is, you're right. I mean, it could look like buildings, and why not? Because I do travel a lot, and, definitely your eye gets influenced and mine gets influenced by what you see.
Right. And again, the colors aren't those vibrancy of the landscape and all. They're muted, neutral tones they would see like on a stucco surface or a painted surface. And like I say, these to me look like two paintings above a basket of flowers there. So, I mean, a jar of flowers. Beautifully done and very, very unusual. Now, I think that's the end for that. Is that right? We finished? Okay, folks. Well, we're going to give the cameraman a chance to bring his other camera back into in our studio. And while we do that, we'll talk a little bit, and Kitty's going to be getting ready to hold up the first piece. What we're doing here, now you're going to see, hey, how can this be the same artist? But as we talked earlier in the beginning in our little interview, that she is very versatile, not so much in too many of the different media, mainly in the oil and the acrylic paintings, but being able to go from what we've seen just a plethora of abstract paintings to more definitive, almost portraiture-like situations. So, and if we have time, we're going to go through a few more. That's a real current that's even moving a little bit more beyond that. So we're going to go ahead. I think if we're ready, let's see, I'm not sure if we're ready now. Are we ready? Think we can get it yet? Okay. Let's go ahead, and Kitty's got it up. And why don't we see if we can get it?
Yeah.
Why don't you?
Oh, sorry.
There you go. All right. Now, first thing you're saying, who is this painter? Is it Modigliani? Could it be Modigliani? Look at the neck.
Yes.
It's magnificent. Madonna and Dove. And what is this? Please tell us what this is, because this is a shocker from what we've been seeing.
Well, I have to, I mean, you should know that I like to do figurative work also. I mean, I consider myself a figurative artist and an abstract artist. And this is the first of the series that I'm going to do on women. And at one time, I wanted to do just women of India, but it might just be women. And so this is my first painting, and I've called it. It's not that this particular is part of the series, and it's called "Coveting the Dove." And of course, I'm greatly influenced by Egon Schiele. He's a great painter, Modigliani. Yes. That's why you see that elongated neck.
Of course, that I said right away.
You remember I mentioned that I'd come back from France. I'd gone for a portraiture workshop there, and I came back and did this. And this was just like maybe a week when I did this painting. And so it's the atelier that I studied in, I mean, they were very very realistic and searching light. And so I learned from them kind of how to work on the eyes and all. But it has a touch, my own touch. And as you can see, I already have that streak of mine running across. I just could not resist that. But it's very simple. It's got shapes. And the focus is on the fingers and holding the bud. And when I put it together, and this is from my mind, kind of, and that's why I called it Coveting the Dove. And it's very simple, and it's an oil painting. It's an oil painting.
Right. Well, once again,
and
even though...
it's framed.
I'm sorry?
And it's framed.
Framed, right.
Yes.
With a lovely little natural wood. Just enough to give it some substance and not take away from its topic. But once again, I see more to it. I know you said the emphasis was on the fingers and, of course, on the dove. But the background, once again, even though the female seems to be very contemporary by today's standards, the back seems very ethereal. So that's why I was saying almost like a Madonna. There's no halo per se, but there is a light source behind there. And of course, the magnificent blue. So it seems to be more ethereal than human. Okay, if I can, not that I want you to change the title, but at the same time, I think it adds another whole view from it.
Correct.
Instead of just focusing on what you thought was the main part, and is still, of course, the central focus of the theme. And what size did we say this is about?
This is about 20 by 24.
And this was oil?
This is oil painting,
wow,
yes.
Magnificent. This is really beautiful because, once again, you've been able to capture the colors, the vibrancy of the color, even though they're muted in the oil. All right, well, I've got one next, and let's see if we can do justice to this. Another young lady, and this one definitely looks like a contemporary person. What can we got here?
Well, this was actually a part of my nesting series. I had a show in Ashna, and I'd done a series of nesting. It's all drawings. This was the only one with that they were all just with trees and with nests, but this was with the girl, and so it's a continuation of the series, and it's on a wooden panel, and it's 12 by 12, and it's again in acrylic,
and what was the title on this?
It's just the quiet one. Quiet one.
And it is on panel. I can feel
it's
wood,
on a panel.
Yes.
It's on a panel, and
All
it's
right.
framed, and this was actually, I'd seen a model of this in Prague when I was in Prague, and I kind of liked it. I just took a picture of it, and I worked my way out of that. And that's what most artists do. We look at something and we try and make it our own, give it our own little twist, and you can see that I did this work after I came back from France. So there is a search for light, and
well, what I see, and I'm looking at some of the others, so I know it's not true. But what I see that these would be these two, and if you have more, it looks like variations on the same face.
Yes.
The faces seem very similar. So there would be a wonderful series if you continue. I know you said you are doing female, but this particular face, I know I'm looking at some of the others and maybe they are different in the face, but it would be interesting to see different colorings, hair coloring, different views, whether or not there's any backgrounds done. But just a wonderful series of this particular lady in so many different looks. I think it would be lovely. Okay, now she's going to bring up what as we're drawing to the end. Let's see what we got over here. All right, Kitty, why don't you, now they're getting back to the vibrancy here, but now we don't have the young lady in it now. What do we have here?
This is a special piece. I had to bring it in because I made this for my husband. This is from our trip in Spain, and I called it Hispana, and you would see the red sky.
Oh, my goodness.
Which
yeah.
was not there, but the simplicity and the squareness of the homes really got to me. And again, I'm always in search of the landscape. I readdress that all the time, and the barrenness and the openness of the landscape, and with just little white homes, really impressed my mind. And this is just for him, so I had to bring it here to talk about it. I love the red sky, and it's not for sale.
Well, good. I think it's once again a departure from what we've seen, and simplistic in terms, but just extremely well done. I mean, to see the architectural adobe, I guess, type-like structures, and then to emblazon them with the red-hot sky, not only significant of Spain colors, but just tremendous, again, vibrancy using that color, which you don't normally think is as particularly vibrant. It's got such a sunburst of red that it really becomes almost like a solar flare or something. Is that red? And I think that to show that as being the sky, just phenomenal, to especially put the other little basic colors against it. So I think it's what size? I know that's smaller. Which size?
This is a 12 by 12,
and I think
it's in oil.
Yes, and I think framing in the simple black wood really adds, just like we talked about the black or the similar almost blackness on one of your paintings, that it really add a dynamic to it. It really finishes off right by putting it, rather than leaving it unframed or putting a natural wood. I think the black molding of the simplistic frame just really brings it all together, brings it back to the architectural lines of the building. So it really is the definition of that. really well done. So congratulations, your husband, then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have this last one. If we have time, we have two more that are extra than we normally do. This is probably the smallest piece, so I'm hoping we can get a good look at it. Again, another female playing, I guess, the violin to me. And tell us about this, please.
This
Kitty.
is called the Nola fiddler, and I like to work both large and small. So I mean, I work even smaller sometimes, and it's a challenge. And I just bought this brought it along as a fun piece. And
it's in what medium again?
This is in oil and
on wood.
On wood, oil on wood.
Well, to get that kind of, again, all I can say, to get that kind of detail on such a small piece, because we're talking about, not a miniature, but almost close to a miniature,
right.
Is really remarkable. Usually on the miniatures like that, you just get a portraiture just of the face. So to get almost a complete body in detail, I think is remarkable. Again, I like it. I like with the others, but I certainly like your abstracts. Now, this, folks, is what she told me is her new vein. So as we see, we've gone from total abstractness to total definitive, and not only so, in a wonderful vein for children. So what better a mode to do that and keep her bright, positive spirit than to do this? But tell us a little bit about it, and I have some more comments, please.
Well, I have 4 grandchildren, and I just had a granddaughter last year, and I was there for her delivery, and I decided that I wanted to do something for her, and this is how I began working. It's just scratchboard, and I started drawing, and I said, why not do real art for children? And so this is what I'm branching out. It's not the major part of my work, but I like to do this off and on because it's just drawing. And so I get these little toys and I put them together and I just draw. And so I've made a lot of fun little pieces, and I've been selling them. So this is just what I call my art for children. And I think it's important that children learn to appreciate good art and have it in their bedrooms, and they can keep it with them even when they grow up. Oh, yeah. And that's it. So there are a lot.
And right before we close, I want to put you in touch with, there's a lady I know in not-for-profits who she's putting together, and a couple others who have put together children's books for different purposes. And I think the addition of your illustrations like that would be significant. If they don't have contracted with an artist, I think it would be a wonderful combination. So when I see them next week, I'm going to see how far along she is there, and if she's interested, then I'll put her in touch with you, because I think that would be a natural pairing.
Thank you. I'd love that. Okay,
we want to thank you very much. You've done a wonderful job. Kitty Parah, I know I'm messing up. Parah. Thank you so much. Again, look at our website. It's the same, KITTYPARAKH.com, and look for her in Rolls and Bowls and any place else. We think that her work is certainly worth your merit, and we appreciate her coming in. Okay, we'll see you at the galleries. Take a look for us. Enjoy.